Okay, I feel good about
That's
that.
good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll write down.
Stop yelling
210.
outside.
I hate living here. Okay.
Gotta escape the Dakotas.
Lord knows I do. Okay, I'll give it 5 seconds to bring us in. Hello and welcome to the YASEcast once again. This is episode 27. I am Lamo. Tonight I am joined by Morgan.
Hey, what's up?
I'm joined by Vince.
Hello, I return.
And I'm joined by our very first guest. Good Lord, I can't talk tonight. Bad way to start out a podcast, let me tell you. Tonight we have our very first guest, King Hippo, a.k.a. Tanner.
It's an honor and a pleasure.
I guess the probably should have Tanner, aka King Hippo, would have made a lot more sense. But
it is what it is.
Hey, but by like the 4th or 5th guest, I might have it down. We'll see how things go.
Your legal name is King Hippo now.
Mistakes were
go.
made. It's fine. Yeah, we'll move on.
But yes, our guest tonight is King Hippo. If you're not familiar with them, he's been doing some incredibly important work throughout the past few years in the FGC. He's done a mixture of thought-provoking think pieces and some actual thorough investigative journalism that honestly is something I really respect.
Yeah.
Most recent piece has been on essentially our perceptions of negativity as portrayed by different outlets and things. Welcome to the show. Very happy to have you.
Oh, thanks a lot. It's great to be here. Investigative journalism is probably a pretty nice way of spinning it, but yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, probably the reason that I say that is one of your things that really has stuck out to me a lot was the write-up of the write-up you did surrounding CEO and Daytona Beach.
Oh, well, yeah, that was.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one was. That was a lot of digging. Yeah, that was a lot of tabs open.
Yeah,
that one was a lot.
And so, I had, that's where my head was when I was thinking of that, and I stand by what I said.
Okay, well,
there.
in that case, I
was...
guess, yeah, maybe I will take that nod. But yeah, I don't like to characterize myself as a journalist or anything like that. More of an enthusiast. But no, that's very nice. That's very nice of you to say.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That's the only time I've ever written anything in advance for reading out loud on the show. So
B+.
Hey, I'll take it.
Wait, that's pretty good. It's a passing grade. And I think it speaks to, I mean, obviously all of us read the stuff that you've written, and the fact that we're also an example of sort of investigative journalism that all three of us had 3 different answers.
Sure. Yeah, I guess
that's things that came to mind. So that's good.
I think, yeah, I guess that is, yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I guess that is a pretty fun thing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed and frequently think about the No More Ahab's piece that you put out recently.
Yeah, I enjoyed writing that one. I was on a Moby Dick kick. I probably shouldn't say that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would not have guessed.
Let me rephrase. Yeah, let me rephrase it. I was on a Melville kick, as you do, and
as one does.
And it's just that, Moby Dick is one of the great one of the great books about someone who's just dedicated to ruining his life, just being a disaster human. And I think a lot of times people underrate that as far as when they're trying to say well, this person, they really just want to do the right thing and they're just trying hard and they're failing. And it's sometimes I just think it's I think this person's willing to take everything down just to prove one solid point. In this case, Ahab wants to kill Moby Dick, even though it'd kill everybody. In fact, it does. Spoilers for a 200-year-old book.
But I haven't read it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. That's a spoiler. It's a big spoiler. My name is Ishmael.
I thought it was like Finding Nemo. I thought it was about a cool whale.
No, but there is a funny Jewish comedian-esque guy named Marlin. No, it's just Finding Nemo. But yeah. So that was especially I wrote that when we were hearing about what was going on with Lab Zero Games and Mike Zymont and everything that was where it was just clearly just someone being self-destructive at a level that's just unheard of, just taking down an entire studio to prove a point that I don't even know what it was. Something about if you get a hard drive and it's not a good hard drive and they tell you ahead of time, you can't be mad if it's a bad. I don't know if you ever saw the analogy he tried to post in Slack to defend himself.
Oh Lord.
High tier wacky stuff.
I definitely did not.
Yeah, there was an article on it was like a really low end tech site that basically one of the former Lab Zero people had sent out the memo that he had given. More like a manifesto, really, than a memo. And it had this really long analogy about if you get a hard drive that's bad, and they tell you it's bad ahead of time before they order it, it really would seem inconsequential to be upset about it when you get it and it doesn't work. However, if they told you it was going to be bad and you had an option to go somewhere else, can you really be that mad? It was just psychotic almost. Like it just
Oh boy.
complete ignorance of anything that was going on, and obviously that showed in what happened with the company going forward. But that really was the inspiration to kind of make that piece and talk about how there are people in communities, even though you think like, well, they'll come around eventually, or they'll see the good points in this, and I just don't think that'll happen sometimes. I think people are in it for themselves sometimes. Not everybody, sure, but some people, and
Yeah.
you have to really, you can't have those people around.
I adored that point.
Mm-hmm.
I before listeners think I am a doctor, I actually have read Moby Dick.
Oh, okay. Good.
And listened to the
Whoa,
Mastodon
okay.
album that is themed on. Oh, I'm sure everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Morgan's read Moby Dick. Okay, cool. No, but I adored that point, and I loved the applying it, particularly to the Mike Z situation, but even it's applicable more broadly as well in communities and scenes where you have people where it's like, no, like this person is not going to turn around and is not going to see the light, and it's like they will take everything down with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people get caught up in that, and I've seen people get hurt by that. I feel like the FGC as a spot is pretty conducive to fostering that kind of mindset with the sort of kind of inherently hierarchical way that people think about their relationships and the idea of like scenes and leaders of scenes and all that. It was actually kind of a grim lens to apply to this community, but one that I think is unfortunately very fitting.
Well, and it's a great point, Morgan. And like you said, you can apply it to a community fairly broadly. And I think one of the issues, and we'll get to it later because we're probably going to talk about the catalog I'm trying to put together, but one of the things that really hurts is that a lot of them is like we use the term community very broadly, but really, and if you've been in it for a while, you kind of know it's more like little sub communities, maybe hundreds of them, coalescing together over a course of like one weekend maybe, and those are like the major events. But a lot of people will get that in their head that that's the whole community, and if nothing happens there, then it's kind of all wavy, right? But the reality is, of course, that you get in those smaller sub-communities, and there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of people getting hurt, and there's a lot of people that have been banned from a smaller sub-community, and then will kind of drift into another one, and there's no way, like, a lot of those smaller communities don't really want the hassle of having to say, we banned this person, and we're trying to tell everybody. They just want that person to go and just leave them alone. And I don't blame them for that. That's absolutely a valid point, but I think that if you don't acknowledge that the smaller sub-communities have an issue where someone will just take everything down and leave because they don't feel like it's big enough that anyone will care, and those communities don't have a voice in trying to protect themselves against a wider sort of, and getting that known out there that someone like, let's say the fella Dine that's on the list, he's been, in a lot of other sub-communities, and he's messed around a lot with a lot of them, and they've banned him, but it just seems to always keep coming back around that he's a mod somewhere or someplace. And I think it's just because a lot of people don't know. And I think you have to bring attention to those kind of things, because otherwise it'll flip through the cracks again and again and again, and we'll just keep having the same conversation. And my voice hurts. I don't want to have the conversation anymore. I want action.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because that was actually the long-standing issue that kept coming up in Michigan. There's like a small group of problem people, and what would happen is basically we would have a TO that would be running things, and eventually they would just give up and quit, and then some new TO would come in, but they didn't know, so they're like, oh, we'll give them a chance. Oh, and then you get all these new people who would always be like, well, they were nice to me. And we got to be like, yeah, but you weren't here for the last 10 years, bro.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Vince.
And yeah,
absolutely.
so it was like so hard to get rid of them because of that.
And because is, it's just like general FGC history. It's not like it's documented in books or anything like that. If we hear stories about the general FGC, we're only going to hear it from the personalities that are, rotting in the retirement homes in SoCal and New York. So that's what we hear about. Even if like the Midwest history is sort of sporadic, and like I'm friends with like Brad Vitale, who goes by Slips. He's a great Tekken player from St. Louis, so he knows a lot of like older people, and he can tell me stories about that. But that's all I really hear, and we always hear like the apocryphal stories of like, we were playing in a golf land, and someone would get thrown, and they'd get tossed out or beat up in the parking lot. And that's all we ever hear. So it's not like anyone writes down history to begin with. Least of all these little intra-communal butting heads and people who get banned and people who have to deal with another one. And like Vince said, it's just like when you get another TO, because no TOs are permanent. Very few are permanent. Even in Arizona alone, we've had one that's been going on for like 7 years, and that's like shocking. I've never seen one last more than 2 before, so this is we're kind of in uncharted territory. But that is a huge issue, just like you said, and that's another reason why I did and I continue to do the things that I do because I think that history is important to be written down or at least discussed in some way.
Absolutely. I mean, there's already a big enough problem, and I don't mean to make light of it when I say this, but there's a big enough problem, just the organization and storage and archival of non-important information. It's, I mean, even things as simple as like, hey, what's the tech for this game? What are the combos I need to know? Stuff like that. If that's hard to find, the things that really matter, which are going to be, hey, how do we help keep our communities good? How do we make sure that we're taking care of bad actors and making sure that people know these people are bad actors? If we can't get the very basics right, we're not going to be able to really get the really crucial, important things going to keep people safe. We're not going to get those right. But we're going to loop back around to this later. This is definitely something I want to make sure we come back around to.
Sure.
I feel like we don't need a check-in question anymore, but Rhett also sent in a very good one. So Rhett, aka Master Who, I want to know what y'all get at the continental breakfast before day one of a tournament. Are you considering strategy of your diet to emphasize your performance? Are you eating your feelings?
Ooh. Well, if you look at me, it's very apparent I eat my feelings. But I would say that I don't. So when I would go to tournaments, I'm really bad at. I'm bad at eating breakfast. Period. So I kind of skip. And if there's a continental breakfast, I usually have to look for it, which is really not my jam, to say the least. No pun intended. But I usually, if I were going to have breakfast, I would probably eat light, because I feel the more I eat, the more I'll get tired or sleepy or whatever. And I won't feel as good because I'm going to be on my feet for probably about 7 or 8 hours minimum. And I think that's just going to be conducive to a bad time. So usually I would go pretty light in the morning. And luckily, I saw talks of having a double screwdriver in the chat there. I'm a pretty devout teetotaler, so I don't drink when I'm at tournaments. Doesn't give me a lot of friends, unfortunately. But, hey, I have a not very good time. So there you go. Maybe I am. Now I'm thinking about it. Maybe I don't have the right idea. But yes, I'd say I go very light in the mornings.
Morgan, I know you said you had a good answer to this.
I'm all about the continental breakfast. I am absolutely in that shit. And I have the tech. I've got some tech to share. You can make, usually continental breakfast, you've got, especially like a hot breakfast, you've got the toast, you got the toaster, you got maybe some eggs, maybe some cheese. And I did this a lot when I was off on, like at my last job, I would be deployed and be collecting survey data, and like we wouldn't be paid for lunch. So I'd go to the continental breakfast. I'd make myself a little egg sandwich, toast up some bread, throw some scrambled eggs in there, some cheese, some hot sauce. It's nice. But the real tech is, you grab some, like a banana or two, some peanut, and make a little peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Wrap it up in a napkin for that tournament tech, and you got a snack for later too. It's not just breakfast anymore. It can now be brunch.
You know, what are fight sticks but just giant lunch boxes with buttons? If you have one of the ones where it's like, oh, like, say you have like a Mad Catz like TE2 Plus where it has the button where like you can boop, and then the lid opens up. That's just a fucking lunchbox, dog.
Yeah, Lamo's got a great point. However,
the sandwich in there.
he's got a great point. However, I'm not going to be the guy that you get the picture of that goes viral on Twitter. They've opened up my fight stick and there's just eggy nonsense in my stick, just cheese leaking out the top of my stick as I shake hands with something. Like, I'm not going to have that. Sorry, dude.
I would absolutely be that person. I would be on stream and I would like pop open the top lid and I would take out my sandwich and start eating.
That'd be such a good stream moment. Holy shit. I definitely did that at one point. Like I used to have one of the big ass Vuelix sticks. Oh, God. And at one point I made a sandwich, put it in a bag, then I brought it to locals. And it's like I beat somebody and I just opened my stick up and pulled like a fucking sandwich out and started eating it.
Oh, jeez. I mean,
listen, that's also a good way if you're trying to get around. Like, if the venue's like, hey, no outside food or drink, they're like checking bags and shit.
It was inside the venue.
That's true.
Dunzo.
Yeah. Well, we did have that. We did have that period where people were claiming, this was about like for a cup of coffee, that they were going to claim that they were going to have metal detectors and stick inspections at every tournament. And so, you would have, that plan could have gone right out the window, but nope, not anymore. I think it's a good plan.
I'm always like 20 steps ahead.
Yes. Big 5-head moment right here.
Good place to be.
All right. So my personal answer, I've stuck to this. Then I also started thinking about continental breakfast in other ways, but like my go-to for like if I'm doing anything important where it's like I know I gotta like be thinking a lot, I'm going for the fresh fruit and I'm going for the yogurt.
Yogurt.
Staying away from grains, staying away from any meats. I'm just going for that gurt and them fruits. I was gonna try and say oranges, but I'm like I can't do like that hard G like I did with gurt. So
yeah, Jez.
yeah, I'm going for the fresh fruit and for the yogurt. That's my strat.
You could say the Gert and the Jez, but that doesn't sound very good. I wouldn't go.
No,
with
it doesn't. The cool thing too is like, okay, say you're playing, say you get, it's because it's a light meal, right? You're gonna have to get something else sooner or later. At some point, you're gonna get knocked out. It happens. Cool. You know what? You're probably hungry enough to like just make some really bad food decisions. Meanwhile, if you had filled yourself up on them greasy meats in the Continental, you're not gonna have the stomach space. You're like, sorry, I can't. I have to go shit for 3 years. I'll see you at the next combo breaker.
I hadn't thought about the quality of a continental breakfast because we're not always at.
It's not good.
We're not always at a combo breaker like venue. I mean, sometimes if you get like I went to Final Round 2012. I was at a Marriott continental breakfast. I mean, that was with a piece of toast and pancakes. Flatter than a piece of paper. So that could have been bad for me. You're right.
Oh, fuck. Did y'all... Okay, this is a bit of a sidetrack, and I apologize. Have y'all ever been to... I started seeing these recently, because I do, like, a decent amount of traveling for work sometimes. It was a pancake robot, like an automatic, like, pancake, like, conveyor belt thing. Have y'all seen this?
We've got our priorities
So it's like you press a button, and it's like, okay, it puts out, like, however much pancake batter onto like a conveyor belt that then like goes under like some heating elements, like an oven essentially where it gets cooked, and then it just falls out onto a plate at the end eventually.
I think you're thinking of Pee-wee's. I think you're thinking of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the 1980s picture.
Yeah.
With the
listen,
Rube Goldberg.
Whoever made this was thinking of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
But I do want to.
Or Wallace and Gromit.
I want to meet this Rube Goldberg robot that you're talking about because he sounds like.
I don't, because it sucks. They're the worst pancakes ever.
Oh, okay, yeah,
but
I can't imagine.
The novelty of it is absolutely.
That's true.
There.
I would forgive the quality of the pancakes if I could just see it happen and be like, I don't want to eat this, but I'm amazed by the process.
This just makes me think of
I want to make one,
sushi.
but I don't want to eat one.
Conveyor belt sushi.
But instead of sushi, conveyor belt breakfast.
Maybe in the same way that Star Trek inspired automatic doors, Pee-wee inspired automatic breakfast.
I think it did. Yeah, I don't think we give enough credit to Pee-wee's for the innovations that Tim Burton brought upon us. So I think you're absolutely right, Morgan.
Yeah.
Vince, what about you? What's your tournament breakfast strat?
God, I'm also pretty bad at breakfast, but I typically just do the yogurt thing. They got the Greek yogurts. Take one of those, and like potatoes, because there's never a time I will pass up carbs, especially not when they're parboiled and then fried like a good potato.
After my own heart.
So yeah, that's
boil
pretty
them,
much
mash
all I
them,
do.
stick them in a
Nothing
stew.
too exciting.
Potatoes are broken on like the vegetable tier list.
Oh yeah, it's completely unbalanced.
They're so fucking broken.
No, they're like A tier. What the fuck?
Yeah, you ask God.
balanced.
People have been asking God to nerf him for years, and he says, "Don't ask me for shit." It's really, it's just a shame.
Yeah, potatoes too goddamn strong.
Fits in every meal.
Okay, that. Give him that. There's like nothing you can't do with potatoes, really.
Nope. I mean, Sam said it best in The Two Towers: boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. He was right.
Yeah. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna start thinking too much about potatoes. Real quick, what have y'all been up to this past week? I know we've been up to at least some doom scrolling.
Some things happening in America.
Week.
I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention, to be honest. But something's happening in America. Everybody's talking about it. But I've been up to
there have been things TM happening in America. But aside from that, we've been doing other quote unquote things.
Oh yeah, definitely been up to other things.
So what did you up to the past week, Tanner?
Let's see. So this week I'm in another Discord, a fandom Discord, and I rarely venture into areas of fandom because, as you folks can imagine, and you've been on Twitter, so I assume fandom sucks. It's not worth it to be a part of it, like 99% of the time. But I found a really sweet community of like 25 people, and they asked if I would participate in. They wanted to make a visual novel. Now for me, a visual novel is like Phoenix Wright, right? Like that's my normie experience in the world of visual novels. But I really like it. I like Phoenix Wright a lot. So I said, fine, maybe I'll give it a shot at this. So I did a lot of research and see what those games look like, what the scripts look like. How would you even make a game? Because I'm not a game designer by any means. How does it fit into making like meaningful choices in a game? How do you present the choices in ways? So I banged out the first chapter of a visual novel for this group, and they really, really liked it. So that was a really nice thing. It made me feel good that I could do something and research it and make it. I'm not saying it's good by any means, but it's fun to do that kind of thing. It was fun to interact with. It was fun to have people be nice about it, and because like I've curated the fandom so much that no one's going to yell at me for it. But that was really sweet. And then mainly I've just been up to. I mean, I've been working again more often than I did during the early days of COVID, so that's been kept me pretty busy, which I'm pretty thankful for. And my work is fairly safe, so there's nothing really that I'm worried about. And I finished, so I bought the Xbox Game Pass because I put my Xbox on my desk finally so I can access it. And the Game Pass is one of the great deals right now. $15 a month. You get access to a ton of games. You get Xbox Live with it too. So it's just a great deal all around. So I've been playing a lot of games that have been on my backlog for years, and I got nothing better to do with a lot of this time now. So I've been playing through a lot of the Game Pass. I recently, I finished the last 2 games I finished up, and I do like long form reviews of them on Twitter. So if you keep seeing my posts like in the middle of the night, it's probably just because I finished a game and I want to talk about it. The last game I just finished up was a game called Ekenfell, which is an independent game published by Humble Games, by I think Happy Ray Games is the name of the dev. Really sweet little game. It's a pixelated RPG about a girl that is trying to find her sister who's at this magical academy. And she finds that maybe something's up there, it's on lockdown, and she's suddenly got magical powers, and she was normally an ordinary person. Like I mentioned in my Twitter thread, it can draw comparisons to a certain other, there's another, what is it? There's another series, it's like Harry Turfer and the Gender Critical Witches. I don't know what it's called, but whatever it is. Everyone knows
Chuck
about
Tingle?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever it is, it can draw a lot of comparisons to that. But I think one of the big differences, and I think it's very intense by the dev, is that I think with the exception of maybe one character, every character in the game is queer in some way. There's non-binary characters go by neopronouns, black queer characters. So it's a very diverse game in that sense. Yeah. And the music was done by, I don't know the name of the duo. It's a husband, I should say a married duo that did the music for Steven Universe. I don't watch Steven Universe, but I know people love it.
Ivy and Sarasu?
That's right. Yes, that's it. They did the score for this game. And
fuck yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's chiptune stuff with a little bit of piano mixed in. And there's some show tuney, some of the characters have themes, little show tuney themes. I generally like the game a lot. It's a turn-based RPG. Is put on like a grid format. So, and it has the I don't want to say QTEs, but kind of like rhythm-based, where like you do an attack, and it'll have like a radius that kind of closes, and you press the button at the right time, and you do double damage. And same thing if the enemy attacks you and they throw it back at you, you take less damage, and you really have to do that. Otherwise, you'll lose a lot of health really quickly. And I think it's pretty good. I think. A lot of the enemies are kind of the enemy design is great. It's very colorful game. The enemies look really cool, very rounded and like soft looking, like nothing scary or anything like that. But it's like this really cute little monsters. But a lot of them have the same type of attacks. They're either gonna jump on top of you like Mario, they're gonna throw something at you, or something's gonna come up from under you. So once you learn how to block like 3 or 4 attacks, you kind of know how to do it. And a lot of and even the bosses don't really deviate from that. So it can feel a little bit samey. And I think some of the characters are really great, and it's like I said, it's really cutesy, kind of fun game. It's not, I think it's meant for kids mainly, but some of it, I think a lot of the heavy lifting is done by the show tunes, and the old musical theater adage is that the reason show tunes work in musical theater, which I've always heard, is that it's when the emotions get so big that you can't talk it, you have to sing it, and then when the emotions get too big to sing, you have to dance. And I think they skip the step of getting too big, you have to sing, and they just go right to the singing, which is fine. I mean, it's not like a huge part of the game, but I think it does a lot of the heavy lifting for some of the characters of their development and why I should care about them. But that's only like 2 or 3 of the characters. Everyone else is great. And the other problem I had was that a lot of the characters, the most interesting ones, are off screen. The characters, like the main character's sister, who you have to figure out what kind of person she was. She's both like devious and nice, and she's power hungry, but also really, cares about her friends a lot. She's kind of a really interesting person, but you don't really see her. You see her in flashbacks. It was a problem I had with another game I played on the Game Pass. It's Don't Nod Games, Tell Me Why, which was a similar game about kind of investigating the past of a character that was really interesting, but she didn't show up a whole lot, so I felt a little lamed out by that. But I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it's really good. I think it's only like $20. It's on every console. It's on Switch. It's on PC. It's on PS4. Right. So I give it my endorsement. And if you got the Game Pass, you get it for free. So absolutely try to. You can fill.
Get Game Pass. Get that, and then also get Forza Horizon 4.
Oh yeah, you can.
That game's fun. That's what I've been playing on Game Pass.
It's a game you can play.
Yep.
It's a game you can play.
Forza, I know what that is. Sometimes.
Yeah, it's cars.
Yeah.
They go fast. Vince, what have you been up to?
I've
past
been
week?
in the old YASEcast. We made a channel called Kick Out the Jams because Compy started buying music equipment and then tricking everybody into talking about it way too much.
Yep.
So we decided to do this thing. I guess there's like a whole YouTube history with it, and I don't really know who started it, but this guy, Andrew Huang, is a pretty popular YouTube personality, does this thing where he creates or finds or whatever some sample, and then he finds like 3 or 4 people that he knows, and they all of the 4 people in the video turn it into a song. So we decided to just like do that in the YASEcast because we have like, I don't know, 7 or 8 people who are always in there talking about like, hey, let's, like, I just bought this, I want to get this thing, and we just decided to kind of do it as like I can't think the word, but to kind of like force us to actually work on something, you know, and not just be forever because it's really easy in any gear-based hobby. Like, it's really bad in photography as well. And pretty much like whether it's like synths or guitars, like people are just really bad about it, where you just like buy all this stuff and then you never use it. It sits around and you're like, oh, well, I made this like 4-bar loop that's really cool. And then that's all you ever do. So just to kind of like getting us making stuff. So I've just been working on that. Our projects are due this weekend sometime when we decide to do it.
Oh, hell yeah.
I
I'm
also
super excited to hear
purchased
this.
a very large boy here because I am a smart,
Damn.
intelligent person.
How about that?
Hold on. Keep that in frame. I want to look at that more.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This got spicy really quickly. That's something.
That rules.
I like how you have the election map reflected in it.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's still a reflection of the election map.
So for those of you out
here,
those of you out in
I'm waiting.
Podland, Vince just held up a very big, very reflective mixer, held it up to the camera, and you could see the election map reflected in it.
I'm just kicking out the jams and waiting for Georgia to flip, bro.
All right. Well, I can't think of many better ways to spend
as it
the
were.
night.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wish, my parents are musically talented, and I always am very jealous of that ability, and I wish I had.
Talent is fake.
Yeah, that too.
It's just practice.
They are musically practiced. How about that? There you go.
No, I mean, I'm not trying to like, I don't know, tell you you're wrong or whatever, but that was like a big Twitter discourse recently where people were complaining / talking about talent and how some people are better because they're talented and whatever.
Oh, total. No,
Just-
I totally get you. I think it's a very good point to make. Just the easy shorthand for me to say. I'm pretty used to it. But yeah, you're right. It's so, and maybe I should just try. But why try? How about that?
Just do the dang thing. Do it. Do
I
it. Shit, it's
tried.
cool to do shit. I can yell about this forever, but I probably shouldn't. Morgan,
Yeah.
what have you
I'm
been up
here.
to this past week?
This past week, well, let's see, a couple things. One, Guilty Gear Accent Core Plus R got
Yeah.
a netcode beta.
Oh yeah.
And that's a game that has been very formative in my life. I was hanging out with I'm going to say friend of the show, Captain Ribbon, while I was streaming, and I decided I got the bug to watch that old GGX intro where it's like another savage day on planet Earth and everything. And halfway through it, both of us realized like this is like the corniest like Adult Swimist ass thing, and I love it. And absolutely, like, seeing this at, like, the junction I was at, like, in, like, my freshman year of high school, like, set me on a course in life that I would only realize I had been on when I turned, like, 31 and was playing this game with a rollback update. So that's been cool. It's weird going. I guess this is the experience that more Street Fighter-oriented people might have of being very good at, like, one entry in a series and then going to, like, a similar but different thing. Lemo and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and it's weird and it's very humbling to have to be to learn again, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's I was streaming earlier and trying to play. You know, I'm at the highest rank in net play in Xrd with Soul. Trying to play him in plus R is a different thing. So that's been a lot of what I've been playing lately. But beyond that, I've actually been for the first time getting into NaNoWriMo. It's National Novel Writing Month. My partner is a big writer. She does it a lot and is a very good writer, in my opinion. A totally unbiased opinion about the work product and art of the woman that I love. But
sounds unbiased.
So, totally unbiased. I'm a doctor.
Yeah, definitely.
Doctors aren't allowed to be biased. Yeah,
True.
So,
the H in PhD stands for honor.
I don't think it does. I think it stands for heavy slash. Punch, heavy slash.
Oh yeah, I did hear that somewhere. Actually, you're right.
Yeah, so that's been it's been fun. I've got my outline done and all that. I had a shower thought of a concept, and then that turned into a shitpost tweet, and then I was like, I actually like this enough, and then told my girlfriend, and she's like, you know, it's NaNoWriMo, you know, do it. So that's been fun. I haven't written for. What's up?
I was gonna say that's how all good ideas start, is a shitpost, and then it just turns into like the New York Times bestseller overnight. You know, it just kind of.
You would be surprised how much that applies to much
everything.
of what we do as Yates.
Yeah,
It started as a shitpost, yeah, and then we made merch, and people bought it.
People bought our.
Yace is ultimately just a shitpost, but yeah,
American
it's
dream
fun so far. Yeah, it's I'm writing a queer romance story about VTubers in the time of COVID, which is going to be, I think there's some genuine meat there about like isolation and, you know, what is front stage and backstage in terms of how we present ourselves to each other and self-discovery and something. And I'm making a flappy butterfly with my hands because it's just beautiful. I like it. It's gonna be fun.
Honestly, every time you bring up the premise, I'm like, "Fuck yeah, this sounds so cool!" Like I get so excited about it every time that you start talking about it again.
I'm excited about it. I was just streaming myself writing about it.
I'm really excited to see, you know, how it ends up turning out and just what you put out.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I'm excited for it. I'm stoked, Morg.
Yeah, it should have. I'm just about done with the first chapter of it, so I'm probably gonna like write that, sit on it, and I might like put it out into the ether, and then yeah, that's about where I'm at. I think it's going to be like a big thing for this month. I'm actually like, we'll see how the momentum carries on, but like, I'm actually genuinely really excited, and that rules.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. The Arizona fighting game community, aside from myself, home to 2 other published authors who have books that they've put out, and we talk all the time, and it's just a fun thing that we share. You know, I met these guys through fighting games, and they also are authors who love to create their own world and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. I've tried. You know, obviously I like to do the blog writing I do, but I've also I've been kicking around the idea of making a fiction story, and I finished this past year. This year I finished 170K fanfic that I had been writing for 3 years.
Ooh.
So that was
Hell yeah.
that was like, okay, maybe I can write a book. I would just need to, you know, maybe make my own premise. That would probably be good. And then I can go from there. But that's really cool to hear you start that. I mean, everybody, you know, I don't know how to. It's National Writing. What do you say? NaNoWriMo? Is that what you said?
NaNoWriMo. I think it's like National November Novel Writing.
Yes.
Whatever.
NaNoWriMo. Everybody gets into it. It's a fun thing to do. It's a great prompt. And I think you can follow every day. I think they'll have like, you know, maybe this like kind of goal you might want to reach out for. So yeah, that's super cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. And like on that note, another thing, just to like, maybe my check-in's going long, but I also had the privilege of reading actually a collection of poetry and prose by a person that I met through playing Guilty Gear in Florida. So like that was like a very cool thing to sit and read this, and it wasn't really until I was like leaving Florida that I even knew he was gay. So it was like a very intimate and look at this person who like I knew in this one capacity as like a player and like hanging out and talking about like anime and games, and then getting like a very intimate look at a totally different facet of this person, which was like I felt like very much like a guest in someone's house. It was very good. Yeah, it was good. I strongly recommend. Let me look up the name so I can plug it. One Day I Hope That is the name of the and the author is Mark Mervin. So strong recommend on that one as well.
All right.
Right on. Let's see. So past week for me has been, I was gonna say wild, but I feel like wild is really overselling what I'm about to start talking about here. I fell deep into I fell really deep into two separate things. One of them is something I've fallen really deep into before, and that is Destiny 2. There's a new expansion coming out that'll be out actually by the time this episode comes out. And I've spent a lot of time playing Destiny 2. Let me just pop open Steam real quick and just double check. Let's see. Oh, that only shows my Steam time. They switched over to Steam earlier this year and I put on 200 hours. Before that, I'm probably getting close to 1,000 hours in Destiny 2. So I kind of got burnt out. Went back to it with the idea of, you know what, the new expansion's coming out. They're removing some of the raids, which means that some of the raid exclusive weapons you can get, that despite doing these raids for fucking so many times and running so many people through them and still having not gotten these rare drops, let me give it another shot. So over the weekend, went through 2 of the raids, didn't get either of the things that I have been unable to get this entire time, but don't worry, 2 of my friends who've gotten them at least like 3 or 4 times before, they got another one. So I'm very happy for them.
There you go.
Just so overwhelmingly happy that they once again were able to get these fucking things. But anyway, it's the funny thing is they put out their weekly like patch note post today and like, hey, here's how things are moving in the future. And like, hey, so the raid exclusive weapons that are going away for the raids that are going away after the season starts, you'll be able to get them with these tokens. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to play anymore. I'm good. Like, I don't have to run this shit. Like, fuck it. I'll wait for whatever goddamn currency is coming out, and I'll just do that. Like, could not give a shit anymore. I've spent so much goddamn time. I've done one of these raids over 30 times. Like, I have over 30 completions for them under my belt. Still haven't been able to get this fucking thing to drop. Fuck Destiny. Well, I'm not getting back into Destiny. I changed my mind. I'm not getting back into Destiny.
Worked yourself into a shoot.
Yeah, fuck this shit. I'm out of there. The other thing I have been getting really into, though, there's a horror game that came out towards the beginning of this year, and it's been still building stuff on more and more. But the name of the game is called World of Horror. And if you're not familiar with it, it is like a 1-bit horror game that's modeled very heavily after like Junji Ito. It has a lot of like Lovecraftian influence there, with the idea being that usually it's cosmic horror. It's things that are well outside of your control and outside of your ability to perceive, and it's how can you stop these things that are happening, these small things that are happening in and around your town that kind of contribute towards this overwhelming doom that's coming. And it's really cool. It's all like kind of like random events and stuff like that. It is actually an RPG in that you do have stats and there are dice rolls for what's actually happening here. I had played a beta version of the game a lot last year, actually. Ooh. And it only had like 3 scenarios in it, I want to say. And not like, there wasn't really a lot of variation to them at all. But now that it finally picks up the final version of the game, or at least the release version, I should say, there is, oh my god, so much to it. There's so many cool random events that are like, I want to say there's at least 100 random events that can just happen during most scenarios. A lot of really cool encounters, different items you can find. There's really, oh god, there's one that's super fucking cool. There's a very select few scenarios that you can get in game, and the outcome is something very evil has gotten your scent. There's like something very sinister has gotten your scent. And if you keep doing specific events that are kind of hard to find, but you have to like specific actions once you're there, it'll find you. And it's just like it's this enemy that you can't beat, and you kind of have to like try to appease it through your own suffering to this thing. It's like, it's super fucking weird. And like, I've never even like the fact that this existed in the game kind of blew my mind in a cool way that I wasn't really expecting. You can fight everything in the game to be able to force an encounter where one, it's that it's starting to find that there's another greater force outside of kind of the big bad that you're fighting at the time that is slowly finding its way to you, and the game will tell you. Like, if you go home to rest after this thing has gotten your scent, it's like something very evil now knows where you live, or like something like that. And the whole encounter is just like genuinely creepy. It's fucking cool as hell.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, that's Kafka-esque.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what you said it was. Yeah.
It is a really, really, really cool game. I want to say it's either like $15 or $20.
Ooh.
If you enjoy, like, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a horror fan because generally I'm a giant coward. I could have chosen so many words there, but I went with coward. That's whatever. But if you kind of like the idea of like cosmic horror or the idea of some of the Lovecraftian horror stuff like that, I would definitely at least check it out. I think it's absolutely worth buying. I've been having an absolute blast with it. But definitely go look into it. The name again is Worlds of Horror.
Steam game?
Yes, it is on Steam. I want to say it's I don't actually know if it's on consoles. I don't think so.
Okay.
But it is any computer is going to be able to run this thing.
Yeah, I would imagine. You said it was
not.
I think the phrase you used was one bit. So
yes.
I think, that's cool. No, I'm like you. I don't generally. I wouldn't say I like horror, but I do love being frightened. I guess it's like there is a thrill in that I can get frightened. Like I've described reading when I was a kid when I'd read Stephen King. Like I read Pet Sematary, a book where nothing really happens. Like until the very very end, but the sense of impending dread that it builds is like addicting almost. Like it's this weird, like I hate it, but I love it. I want to keep going with it. So I do enjoy that kind of story. And that sounds like right up something like I would like. So yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, the whole thing is fucking rad. I posted a link. It's something truly evil.
Ooh.
Yeah, the thing that I was thinking of. But yeah, play World of Horror. The game fucking rules. It's dope as hell.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now, and this looks like it rules. And even though the art is still like that 1-bit style, this is really unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to find the words for it, but there's definitely like a really big Junji Ito
it comes through.
influence there. Mm-hmm. There's an enemy called Scissor Woman. Like she is 100%. I posted a link to that in the podcast channel we're talking in. It's real fucking good.
That's a Junji Ito character right there.
That's an Ito. That's a very bad game to play. We just look at things and say, "Oh, that's terrifying." That's an Ito.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually when I think of really bad, crazy horror that you just look at and immediately you get the chills, it's Junji Ito. Usually, I know that's.
Yeah, but it's cool. There's also multiple endings for every scenario too. So there's and usually it revolves around were you able to get extra information either from places in town or by following the right rumors or finding the right rumors. So for example, there's one of them where it's hey, I found out that if you go to this one bathroom stall, this serial killer called Akamanto comes out and he's gonna ask you and he essentially asks you, do you want the red paper or the blue paper? And either way, it's either he stabs you or he strangles you. But you can find out from some rumors around the school. It's okay, I heard if he offers you something, don't take anything. Don't take either of the papers he offers you. And it's okay, well, if you go to that encounter, now that option is actually there to take neither the red or the blue paper. And it's if you do that, the scenario changes and he takes his mask off and there's just a void underneath it, and it's crazy. It's cool as shit. Play World of Horror. It's a very good horror RPG.
That sounds like a good.
I need to get off the wiki because I will look at that shit all night long.
I kind of on that note, and I don't want to drag this out any further, but I did read recently a Japanese manga called Trail of Blood, and it's I I don't remember the artist's name off the top of my head, but horror might be a way to sell it, but it's about a kid whose mother is like really attached to him in a maybe not so healthy way, and he's messing around with his cousin. They're on a family hiking trip, and his cousin's messing around with him, kind of teasing him a little bit, and he pretends like he's falling off a ledge, and the kid's mother goes and grabs the cousin and is like, why would you do something like that? That's so horrible. And then she appears to push him off, and the kid falls off the cliff, and the mom just kind of turns around and smiles at her son, and the artist draws very realistically, and it uses like shadows to make the horror of it, like the human face just stuck in a face of horror. That's the scariest thing in the world. It's the scariest thing in the world to me. And I know for a lot of people it's not going to, but look up Trail of Blood if you're into like kind of weird horror existential crisis stuff. That one's, I can hear the typing right now.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, that one's and it's I think it's pretty well translated. I'm pretty sure you can find most of it online, but yeah, it's something. It's real.
Damn. Okay.
And the artist.
I need to just close out of Chrome right now. Just minimize this window.
Good idea.
Oh boy. Okay, so I did put the word out, saying you're going to be on, asking Twitter for some questions.
Ooh, Twitter questions.
We do have one coming in from Miles_EXVS, who asked the question that I think we've all been thinking about a lot lately. Mm-hmm. What's the deal with Gutex?
Oh my god!
I'm sorry. I believe his name is Qtex now.
Guanon.
Yeah.
Guanon. Yeah.
So yeah, Ryan Cernovich Gutierrez.
Oh no!
Damn. The real
You went
government
for the
name.
throat on that one.
I don't even know how to begin. So for the people, the uninformed out there, to the folks at home,
The lucky ones.
yeah, Ryan Gutex Gutierrez, who you may know as the Poggers Man on Twitch, the emote. He's been a very well-known figure in the fighting game community for over 10 years, and it is probably responsible for a lot of the early content, really blowing up in a big way with the Excellent Adventures series, and of course he was hosting, events and all that kind of stuff. So it really kind of a big name, but over the past, as his hairline's receded, so has his brain, and he seems to have really gotten into conspiracy theories in a way that's not like, cute, like, oh, the moon landing was a hoax, that kind of cute thing. Now it's like, hey, COVID's not real. And it's just this increasing escalation of conspiracies that, like, are really quite shocking. And the way I see right here in the chat, the way the question is phrased is he's been harassing people. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think he's harassing anybody, but he has been getting dunked on for his takes a lot. Well-deserved, in my opinion. And he's not going to listen to any of you, so it doesn't really matter. But
No.
It's cathartic in a way, I suppose. But, yeah, that one's really... and I've talked about this in length about how I think this is like really kind of a symptom of how far that mentality goes, where it's like, okay, Gutex is clearly someone who wants to be ahead of the game as far as making money and really kind of trying to present himself as a smart person who's ahead of the game and can sell you something very good. That's always been his MO. It never really bothered me in the sense of like, I mean, that's just what people do. You're going to find people like that all the time. It's not really something to get upset about. But where it does start to get a little creepy is when they have to find the next thing. So, for example, with the FGC sort of in a stasis because of COVID, that and especially as the esports of it grew more and more in a sense of like the companies are going to take hold of it. They don't need a Gutex type anymore, and so you see he kind of fell out of favor, and you don't see him around much. They had that E-League thing where he tried to like get over a bit the whole time, like he was trying to he wasn't there to compete. He was there to get over a character, and it was funny for like 2.5 weeks, but no one really. And, it's funny to see that picture of him with those goofy big glasses on. But that's kind of really...
Gutex?
Yeah, Future Text. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was good for like that was good for a bit, for like, maybe like a couple weeks or so. But with no events, you can't really sell it anymore. So then it's like, okay, what's the next thing? And it's like, okay, the next thing is I'm being screwed out of everything by corporations and, the United States, and you can't trust anybody anymore. And you fall into the next thing you sell is that I have the answers to everything that you're mad about. And the way that, gamers online are mad about tend to be things like, COVID not being real and, trans people. And it'll get to that territory eventually, trust me. Right now, it's sort of in the, wow, this is really unhinged. This is kind of creepy. But it's going to get into a place that's really kind of dark, probably pretty soon. And I hope he's got someone near him that'll talk to him. I doubt, it'll reach him anytime soon. But it's the kind of thing you really, I think, have to pay attention to. Because, like I said, I think it is the end game when you're always looking for the next thing to sell. And the next thing you can always sell is outrage. And so you can sell outrage very, very easily. And so for him, he knows that. And I'm sure he believes everything he's saying. But if he believes something else, he wouldn't be where he is, right? So that's why he has to create the stories that he makes, and he's not, to be fair, he's really kind of doing it to himself. It's not like he's trying to. The only time it really kind of reached over was when he went to R Kappa and made that weird post about
yeah, I thought you guys used to be racist. What happened?
Yeah, like
that was a fucking
and I for the life of me, I can't remember what he was mad about, because 2020 feels like it's been 30 years. So if it was like 3 weeks ago, I can barely remember it. But he was mad about something vaguely FGC related. I can't remember. But yeah, he got really mad, and he went to RCAP and made a weird post about how, man, you guys used to be cool, and now you're not. And
I love that, because that's the first time in years that I've actually looked at R Kappa.
Same.
And I love that everyone in that thread who's like a regular poster was like, "The fuck are you talking about? Fuck you, Gutex."
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean,
no one was on his side.
Even I could say, like, I could go to the worst sewage on
that was Gutex.
Yeah,
He's
that
like,
was
fuck,
him.
I gotta get out of here right now. He's peeling out.
You could go to the worst places on the internet, and I could tell you to post a big post and go like, you know what, guys, you used to be cool. Now you're not. Now I'm the one who's got the answers. You're gonna get made fun of no matter where you post that. You can post that on 4chan for all you like. You're gonna get made fun of. So he's clearly just out of touch. He's out of sight, and he. I
was going with that.
And he just needs, so he just is out of touch. He doesn't really know, he clearly doesn't have an idea of what's going on, because, he was big into, like, cryptocurrency, and that hasn't panned out in any way, in a sort of esports way, so that's clearly, that didn't work out, so he's got to move on to the next thing, and no one really wants to listen to what he's got to sell, so he's got to go to the most outrageous things he can think of, and now it's these conspiracies, and it's really unfortunate, but like I said, I think it's the end game for a lot of these guys, and that's why I don't trust a lot of them, like, beyond, like, that's kind of a funny character that you're playing here. And it's weird because it's sort of dehumanizing, right? Like, of course, he's a human being with, feelings and all that stuff. And if he is struggling with something, I do feel bad for him. But at the same time, you got to put yourself at a healthy distance, because if you start believing in all that stuff, or like trying to like, well, he's doing it, but he's not really, like, it's not really that big a deal. It's like, well, no, it is a big deal. And, maybe he should stop, but it's like, everyone's addicted to posting. Like, you're not going to stop posting out of nowhere just because someone's like, hey, I think you're an idiot. You might post more because of that. It's like that. Yeah. It's like that.
I will never log off.
Yeah, like there's always a drill tweet, right? It's like that one where it's like, go on, call me a piece of shit. It's just going to make me post worse opinions. Like, there's always a drill tweet, and that's exactly what Gutex is at. He's at that stage right now where he's never going. You can tell me my opinions are bad. I'm just going to keep posting about Sharpie Gate. And that's where we're at. So, I just think that when you're, and I think to be honest, I think this goes along all those guys who are like, we're really into pushing esports. They're gonna go down that path because that's the next step. So you see guys like, who's that guy? Dick Lewis or whatever his name is. That guy who hosted
Dickie Lou.
Yeah, Dickie Lou.
Dickie Lou.
Yeah, he hosted E-League for a cup of coffee, and all he did was stir up nonsense and be confrontational because that's his gimmick. His gimmick is that he's, politically minded. He appears to be at least far right of some sort, but he channels that into a personality type of being abrasive and being a quote unquote truth sayer. But really, what he does is he's laundering all sorts of bullshit you've heard before from people with billions of dollars. So he's terrible. Yeah.
He's terrible. He's budget Sebastian Gorka.
He is, yeah. He. Oh my God, I haven't think that, but he's the British Sebastian Gorka. He's gamer Gorka, and and that's a really dangerous spot to be in. Yeah, and he like I don't know if you saw the other like maybe at the beginning of this year he accepted some esports award and he used that as a spot to go on a tangent about like Kotaku, just the most brain poisoned, extremely online rant about Kotaku and how like they're the worst people ever, and that's all he's really into, and he's cultivated a cult. I should say a cult because that's what it is. He'll post something about someone, he'll say something's mentally ill, and all of his fans will start putting that in your mentions. I've had that happen to me. I'm sure a ton of people probably particularly
I think-
women. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think most of us actually in Yace have had Richard Lewis call us mentally ill at some point or another.
Yeah, I think
Blocked
so.
by
I think
Richard
it's
Lewis gang.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor at this point. You wear it like I got a pin right here that says I was called mentally ill by Richard. But
I
yeah,
don't
so it's
I don't want to
all-
interrupt your point too much, but
Yeah.
I think it's really funny that all of Yace is blocked by Richard Lewis because
And-
Richard Lewis doesn't know how a PO box works.
I think the one thing I learned being in the Yace Corps was that the badge of honor is everyone's banned, everyone's blocked by Richard Lewis, everyone's blocked by Majin Obama. Once you get there, you could be in Yace.
Yep.
Yeah, so props to us. And so Richard Lewis, Gutex, and there's a lot of other personalities that are like that. Even what's his name? Who used to run Canada Cup? Lapchi. Very into like I hate SJWs and all that stuff. Like he's into that too. And it's not surprising. You look at that cryptocurrency scam he had. That had all like
I was
that's
about
one
to
of the-
bring him up earlier. We were talking about Gutex chasing money and trying to get on the next fad.
it
I was
was-
like, was Gutex part of esports ecosystem?
Yeah,
I
the
can't remember.
The esports ecosystem grift was so like their video, like that to explain their thing was the
so
same
bad.
generic video that everything makes. Like every crypto
Yeah.
has the same style. It's like little figures with heads, and it's like, hey, would you like to know how cryptocurrency works? They all have the same thing. Like if you watch one of them, you've seen all of them. So yeah, I can't believe that thing even lasted. But then he made a Canada Cup catered to that, where he got like the sad voice, the sad first voice of Goku or whatever the hell that was. Remember that? It was like he got like the ocean dub Goku, not Sean Schimmel, like the one everyone knows, but he got like the ocean dub Goku and like Liu Kang and Shang Tsung from the first Mortal Kombat movie, and those were like the big gets, So he really was reaching out to, and Gutex was the other one, I think. And it was like this weird attempt at like a semi-convention type. It's just nonsense, and everyone complained about it, and everyone hated it. And of course, it's because it's Lapchi. He had favors in mind for all of his friends, and that's just kind of the
limos.
Limos, the limos and all that stuff. It's just the end game of all that is to be in a circle with the people who are billionaires, and they all have the same ideology. You've seen it once, you've seen it a million times. And it'll eventually go down the COVID's not real bit eventually. And I feel bad because there's a lot of people in the FGC who are the targets of the kind of harassment from those types. And that's the scary part. And so I wish that more people would speak out against that and like condemn it. And I think with Gutex, definitely people like Ultra David just ripped him a new one the other day. And I think Gutex, like I'm not really worried about that. But there are some like more fringe characters that I think you could just like, there's like the Oofmatic types of the world, right? That
Oofmatic is
it's who's barely a person. It's just such a obvious, but yeah, that's I hate to see it, but it is what it is, and I think you'll see more of that the more you dig, unfortunately. And everyone's got time to dig. We're all at home.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted the point there for a second.
No, that's
but
fine.
Like, it's something that I like your layout there, and like sort of like the arc of Gutex of just sort of like and as you can see, like Gutex has kind of historically in the time that I've seen his projects been a little bit ahead of things, and like oftentimes they just like he rounded the bend too soon on stuff, and like the way that contributes to probably the mindset of that leads into sort of a let's call it what it is, right-wing radicalization. It's like an alienation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reminded of people with some substantial followings around the fighting community that were pretty into one Jordan Peterson for a while, and we're hucking 12 Rules for Life. And it's like I think that this is something that I maybe I listen to too many podcasts about this kind of thing, but it does always lingers in the back of my head of just like I think Gutex is just being louder about it.
Yeah.
Like I think that there are probably people that are kind of waiting in the reads that like know that like, hey, much like Gutex rounding the bend too early, it's too soon to be open and to say the things out loud. But I remember seeing these people that were like really into this, and like you start to see sort of the if you read between the lines in some people's tweets, like you see like use of the word like triggered.
Oh yeah,
and things that I associate with like right wing message boards and stuff, and like where that kind of discourse and where that kind of terminology flows from. And I don't know, when I see Gutex and like his return to basically being a right wing conspiracy grifter, and it's like
definitely, absolutely.
I do not think he's alone in it, and that's what frightens me as a person who is part of a marginalized identity category, sitting here in the space, sitting there like you kind of. smell something in the air, and you're like, you can't quite place where it's coming from, but it's like there's a reason that people like, I think, oofmatic would still feel comfortable enough like being in public despite being like wildly transphobic.
Not even
not even hiding it.
Yeah, definitely. So you make it's a great point, Morgan. And so what I remember, one of the first threads I made that really kind of blew up was I made a big Jordan Peterson thread. I dissected a lot of the 12 rules for life and all that stuff. And I made a thread pointing out, like, you can see right here where this leads to like a really, it's very, very conservative, but I think the time, what I've tried to do when I've made similar threads about Sam Harris, Joe Rogan, and a lot of those figures that are really popular online, and I try to do it like, okay, so I try to depoliticize it, because I think sometimes there's a tendency to, and it's not wrong, like I'm not saying it's a wrong thing to do, but I think for a lot of people it kind of just goes over their head when you make it as like a right-wing talking point, when they're like, but I'm not right-wing, so how could I? So I try to take that off the table by just going like, it's a thing about being mean to people, okay? It's a thing when you say like the trigger thing, you're being confrontational on purpose. And I don't know why you're in that space, and you need to get out of it, because this is not healthy. That's not how you interact with people. It's not how you're going to get anything done. So I try to make it like, look how confrontational and hateful these people are in the way they speak. And whether you can obviously tie it to a right-wing political ideology. Absolutely. And for Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and all those types, absolutely they go down that path. Gutex has absolutely fallen down that path. Richard Lewis belongs in that path. But there's a lot of people who don't think of it that way yet. They're kind of in the in-between. When you talk about getting radicalized, you're always sort of in that in-between phase where it's not quite translating in direct action. It's more of just the slowly watching a lot of YouTube videos, and now you're louder with Crowder, and you're almost too far gone by that point, So I think to a lot of people, you have to point it out and just point out, like, if you're feeling alienated or something like that, I feel bad for you, but you're going to alienate yourself even further by diving deep into that. You're going to alienate yourself from your community, your friends of people, because if you're friends with people, so one of the reasons why I started doing a lot of the things I've done, because I started my blog, 3 years ago now. And originally when I started, it was about my interests specifically, which was like, I was, bitter at the NRS scene for a lot of things. So I'd talk about that and some other things like that. I would talk about some of my first tournament experiences, but as I kind of put fighting games on the back burner while I was in school, I was really only with fighting game communities. One of my best friends was a person named 16-Bit. Y'all might know her as Stephanie Brownback. Works in NetherRealm Studios. Yeah. So, over time, we got pretty close, and she started to confide in me some things that were going to have drastic effects on her personal life. And I think I was one of the first people that she talked about with it. And it changed my viewpoint, because now you have someone, and it's not a great thing to say that, like, oh, I didn't care about this before, but now I do because it matters to me. And, but that's how, that's sometimes that's what it takes, right? So now I have this person in my life who's very, very close to me, who is going through these issues. And I'm now starting to see the same things that people when they would talk about those things. Sometimes it'd go a little bit over my head. But because it was someone close to me who I could see going through the same issues, and now when it wasn't funny to me anymore, it was something really serious. So that, and then I also got close with someone, my friend Rose, who you might know as Romanova, the cosplayer. She's a commentator. She commentates a lot of DB Dragon Ball Fighter stuff right now. Mm-hmm. Very prolific, very, very good friend of mine. As I got to know her more, I would start to see what happens when a woman who's like even mildly, got a mild following in like an FGC circle, the kind of crap she puts up with. It's just mind-boggling. And it's just stuff I never really paid attention to before, but now that I had that going on, I couldn't ignore it. So that's when I started to do a lot of the content I started, a lot of the stories I started to tell, a lot of the things I started to write, was I wanted to have people have the same experience that I had, where I didn't realize that maybe sometimes when I thought those things, it was really alienating to people that I actually were really important to me. And maybe someone else could learn that, and because it's important. I think that, we all go through alienation. It's just the way of the world right now. And if we don't have that kind of kindness for each other, if we don't try to understand each other, we're not going to get anywhere. And there's some people who don't want to understand. And at that point, we're in the fighting game community. You can just say, hey, I'm not going to do it anymore. And a lot of people just end up leaving. And I think that's it's such a sad thing. In fact, why not? Why don't we talk more about these issues that people have where they feel alienated, even in a smaller sub-community where they're already trying to escape life's alienation? They go to a small sub-community and they can't find it there? Not even fair. So I think that's the kind of thing that we have to talk about, and that's why I think bringing up stuff like Gutex and like challenging that and actually confronting it. I think Morgan, you've noted how like when the infiltration thing happened, I was in every thread arguing with everybody because it was shocking for me sometimes because you'd see people who are like really like, man, they're good at fighting games and they make like smart reads and they do all this stuff. And then you bring up the infiltration story, and all of a sudden they're like, "You will starve again unless you learn the meaning of the law." They turn into Javert from Les Mis.
Javert.
Like, yeah, just super.
Javert.
Yeah, just super. Like, really, like dead. Like, well, the law says, and you know, this I swear by the stars that this person did their time, and like, I have no idea why they would do that, and I would get into arguments with them all the time, and I wasn't mean about it. A lot of times, sometimes I was at first, and then I kind of cooled it off because I was like, this isn't constructive. So I started to just kind of talk to people a lot, like, okay, so why do you think that? Okay, here's this. Do you still think that? And they'd be like, well, it's kind of, and there was a lot of people who would come into my DMs and say like, hey, I read that, I thought about it a lot, I don't think that anymore. I actually think that's really messed up. But I don't think anybody was talking about it in that sense. I think a lot of people were just willing to be like, well, that was a bad thing, let's move past it. And I understand wanting to move past it. It's an ugly thing. It's not something it's not something you really want to talk about. But I felt it was important because it went beyond just, this is a person in our scene who did something bad in his past. He's trying to move past it. It was like, no, in his Korean scene, which again, if we're a global fighting game community, you got to care about everybody, right? In his Korean fighting game scene, he was trying to sue people seriously for what was considered truthful libel. And I think that's a really messed up thing. And if I knew someone who was trying to, sue people and kind of hurt them in that way because they were uncomfortable with them, I would say, hey, that's really messed up. And I don't think we should do that. I don't think we should entertain that person anymore. A lot of people didn't see it my way, unfortunately. And like, if you were to ask me now, it's almost been a year, believe it or not, since I wrote that article. And again, it feels like 30 years ago.
It does.
And if people would ask me today if I still feel like he should not compete anymore, I'd say, you know what? The time has passed. That's a fumble. You just have to take that as, we messed up on this, we're going to improve from it. And I actually think, I'm not going to take all the credit for it, obviously. I think a lot of people are just smarter nowadays about it. That there have been more movements clearly from TOs to take action against people that really just show that they don't have this sort of sense of building community or wanting to be anything other than about themselves in a community. And I really think that's cool. Like, thing with F-Champ went down and it was like right away. Everyone was like, get out of here, man. Don't want to deal with you anymore. It's over. And you wouldn't. And 10 years ago, that was unfathomable. F-Champ was one of the most popular people in the scene. Unfathomable to think that anyone would ever take that step. But it happened. It happened like overnight. And so I do think there's been a change. I'm not negative about it in any sense. I actually think I'm really positive about it. But if you were to ask me, one of the reasons why I keep doing what I'm doing, it's because I think it's important to build that base of kindness and grace for people. And it's from the smaller sub-communities because I think thinking of it broadly tends to dehumanize a lot of the aspects of it. Like, if I just go like, well, it's just a community I go to maybe every 3 months on a weekend, I'm not going to think about it in the same way that I would like it's my best friend going through this like I did. And so I think you have to personalize it. I think you have to humanize it. And doing that is by looking at the smaller communities and what they struggle with. Because that will become what everyone deals with eventually if you let it grow that bad. Which is what we saw with F-Champ. It was like, yeah, originally he was like a NorCal terror that no one liked dealing with, but he was the best player. But then as he got more and more known, it was like, okay, then he's like, going with the Cane Blue River thing, which is just like harassment on a grand scale. Like the poor dude.
That was so shitty.
Yeah, and everyone agrees like now, like, oh yeah, that was pretty crappy actually. And now they don't want to deal with it because they see it. And I can imagine this is the kind of thing that would happen maybe at a smaller scale in some other place, and now it's just extrapolated for a bigger audience. So I think that's the kind of thing you have to start really early and nip down early. And that's when, we can go into the next, I believe the fella's next question was something about the band catalog, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let me pull that up again.
I think we're going to run pretty long on this episode, and I have a presentation at work in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So I may actually have to jump off at some point.
I apologize. I'm very verbose. I know.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm going to try to stick on as long as I can, but at some point I have to take my dog out and probably bounce off.
I just haven't been talking because I like to hear you talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this next question.
Sure.
Then we'll probably. I figure we can probably skip the first tournament topic.
Okay.
I do want to throw out there real quick. I think I do think there's like been a change, But I hope that continues into the era when we are allowed to have events again.
That's a really important part, Vince.
Because I don't want to talk bad about people who did things. Like it's good that they did things, but also it's like very convenient that all of a sudden everybody started dropping these bans in the year when they also just couldn't even run the event anyway.
It's a really good point. I've said that several times too. I really do hope that it continues into an event where you now. So I think the idea is, okay, enforcing it now is easy. Enforcing it in person, if someone does actually try to go to this tournament, that's a little bit harder. Do we have the stones for it? We'll see.
Yeah, that's the most important part of it. Is that it's one thing to do it when there aren't any events, but it's another thing to do it, one, when events are normal, and two, to police this person out of, or don't allow them to come into in the first place, out of these shared online spaces.
That's true. Yeah, it's a totally different thing. You really do have to be vigilant. So we'll see. Might be another year on that one. So.
But yes, okay. So let's get to the other question we had come in. With King Hippo making a document of known people in the FGC that are banned for X reasons, was this made in a way to better inform the public and other TOs far and wide to help inform them to safeguard their respective communities?
Okay, so and so when I posted this catalog that I'd started putting together, there was a few people that said, it was like really a vindictive thing and a self-serving thing, and you don't have to trust me, and people who don't know me, it's fine to think that, like, if you're going to think that, fair game. But I have been honest about my intentions with it, and I said it in the Twitter thread, and I'll say it here, that one of my things that I had noticed with getting people banned, and this came up with when the Dine thing happened recently, where it was that fellow who is like, he was banned from like every Vampire Savior like tournament and Discord like a year or so back. And then he was in this, like, again, in another tournament, another Discord. And I think in Fightcade, he's like a mod in Fightcade, or was. I don't know if he is anymore.
He was.
He was. So he was a mod in Fightcade.
He is no longer.
Exactly. And shockingly, he absolutely abused his power to ban someone because he had a personal thing with them. And so it's that kind of thing where it's like, it was like the Ahab thing we talked about earlier, where it was like, okay, that person is dedicated to just tearing everything down. It doesn't matter. You can switch the community. You can give him more power. You can give him less power. He's going to do the same thing. And power's relative. He's a mod in a fight in a Discord. It's not like he's like a president, but he's going to keep doing it. So I think, though, the problem is memories are short. Like I said, it's been 2020. Everyone's got a little bit of brain fog. Everyone is like feeling like we're going through 30 years right now. It's hard to remember last week, let alone something that happened 2 years ago. But that happens for a lot of people. You forget about the things that people do. So what I wanted to do was put together a list that you could have, and I took it from a fellow in the Smash community was doing that for Super Smash Brothers. His is a little bit more broad. He includes more people, which I kind of disagreed with. So I wanted to make mine a little bit leaner. So it was at any time that someone has actually been banned in some sort of official way. So like someone posted on Twitter, posted on Discord. If you can even give me a screenshot of a Discord with the banned users list, and there's that person. Have that in perpetuity that you can look at as a Google sheet and go, okay, this person is banned from here, 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 and here, because people don't just stop doing the things they're doing when there's no real repercussion other than alienation. Like, someone could leave a space and then and has no incentive to really reflect on why they got kicked out. They'll just go do it somewhere else that will let them get away with it. And so I think the problem is these smaller communities really don't have that kind of voice that can go, like, put out a real large signal that goes, hey, this person's banned because he's been an asshole in our Discord for a long time. So what then I wanted to do was, okay, let's put a list together of people who've been banned in some capacity. Either it doesn't matter, who said it. I just want one instance of someone getting banned, and then I would put it out, and the community can contact me. And if they've banned them from their Discord, if they've been banned from some online group, doesn't matter how big or small, online or offline, note it. And then you can see, okay, if this person's been banned from this many spaces, it kind of feels like this is repeating behavior, and this is something to really take a look at and go like, oh, this person, maybe I don't want them around either. And the more you do that, the more you're going to say, here's what's acceptable, and here's what's not acceptable. You start to create boundaries, and boundaries are important for smaller communities. So I wanted to help with that. And the reason why I wanted to do it, a lot of people have asked why it doesn't say specifically what they're banned for. And while I absolutely agree that there are definitely differences between someone getting banned for one thing, some people have been banned for things that are like maybe not as harsh as other things, and I totally understand that, and I think there is definitely a distinction between all of those. But I think if you post that, people are going to start looking at the list and go, okay, well, who's bad and who's not on this list? They're going to immediately start breaking it down into like who's okay, maybe this one isn't so bad, and then you will start to, it distracts from the ultimate purpose of saying that these people have been banned from spaces because they did something that went against a boundary. So I think if you avoid that step, if you don't want to even start that argument, just post that they've been banned, and that if they have not been banned, I'll take it off. It's all in good faith here, and it's all intracommunal. I post a link every day. I post an update. If there's been no changes, I'll say it. If there's been a change, I'll say it. And you can contact me, and I'll take. And I really wanted it to do too, because some places ban people, but for whatever reason they don't want to say it, and a lot of it is because of retaliation. They don't want people in their community to be afraid of someone's, oh, they said they banned me, like the Dine thing. He banned, I think it was Vicky Viper or whatever, because she was upset that he was commentating a thing for her, and he was just like, oh, ban him from the Discord. And you can't have someone like that.
He banned her from the Discord and from the service.
Ridiculous, right? Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So, and that's an Ahab move. So you can't have those people in this kind of community. So you have to bring attention to that. And if people didn't know Dine, because Vampire Savior, which if you're in the FGC, you know what that is. But, if you're kind of on the edge of it, you're not going to know what the Vampire Savior, community is all about. And so I wanted to have a list. Okay, he's been banned from this part with a big official notice with their reason why, and put it out there so everybody could see it. And I want everyone, no matter what community they're in, if it's big or small, they feel like they have someone to go to who will post this and say, okay, this person's banned, and if they're banned from your tiny Discord or whatever, that matters. And I do feel bad for you, and I want to put it out there so that people can. And also the retaliation aspect is like, let me post this thing. You don't have to say who posted it, who told me. It's all anonymous. I'm not going to say who told me who was banned. I'm just going to say, here's the public statement. There it is. And if you have a problem with it, you can deal with me personally, because trust me, after the infiltration thing, like Teflon, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever you want to say, I'll take the blame for it. I'll argue with you about it, but don't leave those people alone. They're just trying to have fun, and that was what it was made for. So and again, if you don't know me, you don't have to trust me. It's all in good faith, but that's pretty much where I was coming from with making that, and I hope it continues to grow. I've gotten some messages about it. People have been, interested, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it was big for us too, because speaking of Dine, Dine was in the Twinkle Star Sprites Discord for longer than I was even in there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people did not know. One, I mean, I don't think he was particularly active in there, but the fact that he was in our community, and to the point where people were feeling uncomfortable, and so we had to make that call of, okay, you know what, he's out. Like there's no room for him here in this community. Mm-hmm. But it's, if the right person hadn't picked up on, oh, this is who this person is, and I'm aware of what they've done. Exactly. We wouldn't have known he'd probably still be in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's actually on the list. The Twinkle Star Sprites Discord is noted. I don't know who told me. I don't know if it was you or not, but I did note that on there. And that's exactly the reason why I want to do it, because then it's like, okay, here's an easy link you can have in like a Discord, in like the official rules thing or whatever, or you can have it in your own mod group, like if you have a private mod chat or whatever. Here's the list. These are the people that have been banned from a lot of spaces. If you see that come into your server, then you know what to expect. And I'm not saying you got to outright ban it. You can do whatever you want. You can be proactive if you want. I'm not here to tell people what to do. What I am saying, though, is that you can be proactive in looking for the problem areas, and that's where we need to be better at, because then when you're proactive, you don't have to be a problem later. It's exactly in the meaning of the word.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in the Discord there. I think a lot of the people who are being, complaining about it, they're really disingenuous about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's very obvious. Like,
Same
really...
people.
I mean, like you said, you don't have to take your word for it, but it's just a resource that exists. If you really think somebody on there doesn't deserve to be there, at least you can ask around about them now.
Absolutely. And that's why, again, I didn't put why people were banned, because like I said, it gets into that sticky situation of people are going to go, oh, well, that one's not that bad, so we can ignore that. But this one, that's the bad one. That's the one. And it's distracting from the overall point. So yes, exactly. If you see that list and go, hey, this person's on here, why have they been banned? You can go back and go, hey, is that person still? And you go, no, not any. And you can go, no. And you can say, well, and if a ban gets lifted, I will note that. absolutely. Again, it's all in good faith. If someone did something bad and they got banned, but the ban is no longer a thing, like for Noel Brown, I noted on there, Noel Brown was banned, and the ban is up, so I put the years of the ban date. Now he still can't stop, again, an Ahab, just again totally committed to self-destruction no matter what. He keeps messing up or whatever, and whenever people want to take the step to ban him, you can say it again in the chart and in the catalog, and I'll note it. But that's why, because again, like you mentioned, Vince, it's the same people who always end up doing it, and a lot of times they'll keep. And the other thing is about the passage of time, right? The other thing, and it's just like this is back to the infiltration thing. Time passes, and then it's like, okay, now we've forgotten about it. Now it's good enough to move on, and they're gonna come back and do the same thing. F-Champ, I have no doubt, comes back in a year or whatever, and he's gonna do the same crap that he's done for 10 plus years, because and you just have to be aware of it and know.
Secretly, it's not a character.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
you did the thing ironically, but then oops.
Then you oops, right? Yeah. So you just want to make a note for that's there that just says this person was banned, and then it's like it's not about shaming people either. That's the other thing. A lot of people kind of got like that was, I think, a lot of the resistance against it was that it's like a mass shaming thing, and that's not what it's supposed to be. That's why I didn't list why people were banned. It's not about shaming them for what they did. It's about making a note just to say, if this person comes into your community and they've been banned from like 5 or 6 other places, that's probably a good sign that maybe they might be a problem, and maybe you might need to take some steps against it. I'm not telling you to. I'm just saying this is a list. It's a fact.
This is what's been out here. Mm-hmm. This is exactly.
It's out there.
It's presenting the information as impartial as possible.
As impartial as possible. And again, like with the Dine example, if people were, maybe if I can't say this for sure, so I'm not saying, but if maybe the Fightcade people were aware that he'd been banned from a lot of other spaces for incitement of, again, just and mean comments and all that stuff, maybe they wouldn't have given him that position to begin with. And apparently it's been taken away as far as I understand.
Yep.
So it works, and when people speak up, it works. So if they have a tool to do it and they have something that can back them up, even better. And that's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I had to I don't know the Fightcade guys, but I did in a couple of spaces have to. I felt the need to defend them a little bit. Like those dudes are all from Spain or Portugal or something. So maybe you could say they should know. I don't know. There's maybe an argument to be made, but they live in another country. They don't necessarily even play those games. They don't know all that stuff. They weren't here.
And they might not even be particularly interested in the modding part of it, which is why they get people to do it to begin with. And that's the other thing, too, like you just said, Vince, is that a lot of times people just don't know. And I understand the need to be, protective and defensive and people get on people's case about not knowing who and who is banned. There's just so much to keep up with. There's a lot of sub-communities out there, and you can't keep track of every single one. Even researching some of the ones for my catalog, I had forgotten about some of them, the Greats one, the Derek FGC or whatever. I remember that now looking back, but I had totally forgotten because things happen, and we all have lives. We can't keep track of it. And we all need to help each other keep track of it because that's the only way we're ever going to grow. So that's another thing. It's just that if you're if you're a mod or if you run a tournament, if you're a TO and you've got to, put this tournament together, that takes a lot of logistical work. You can't necessarily pay attention to every single person that signs up for the tournament or whatever. But what you can know is if you have a list of these are the people that have been banned from these spaces, probably not a good idea, or at least to keep an eye out for these people. Then at least you have a list. Because like I said, one of my other intentions was to point that I don't think the list is very big, to be honest with you. And I think I only have about 23 or 24 names on there. So again, it's not like this huge list of people that you have to remember. It's one of my criticisms of the Smash list is it includes everyone who's been iffy on Twitter, and I think that just kind of it's not that I disagree with it, but I just don't think it's helpful. So I wanted to put okay, these people have been banned from these spaces, and it's 24 people, and I think it's easier to keep track of those than everyone who's they posted on Twitter was kind of yikes. I understand that. I don't even disagree with that. But for this purpose, I think it's really just better to have a direct, concrete list. You can barely argue with it. If you want to argue with it, take it up with me. I make the list. Don't bother these communities. Don't bother the people that took action. They're just doing what they had to do.
Yeah, and if you're trying to make real events. Not that online events are fake, but a lot of those bans involve stuff that happened in real life, right?
Definitely.
And you're trying to make real spaces better. There is kind of a line there between like you might be a yike on Twitter, but if you really did some shit in real life, like that's one of the goals, right? Is propriety. Like somebody might be a shithead, but if they're not a threat, they're not a threat.
You're going to deal with shitheads your whole life.
And I don't necessarily want to hang out with them or anything, but
they're not bothering.
There's a difference there.
There is, and
they know they can't get away with some shit.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's an important distinction. And again, goes back to why I didn't put that on, why that's not featured, because I think it would then people would argue that people would discredit, the bad faith actors who are already trying to say stuff, would have even more ammo to say, oh, this thing is illegitimate because it just has people you don't like on Twitter. And I don't even want to bother with that because it's such a bad talking point that I don't even want to get involved with it. So just have a concrete list that says, this is why you're banned, and that's all we have to deal with. And then if you don't like people for whatever reason, then just don't talk to them, block them, and move on. But if it goes farther, just know that there's going to be a resource that says this person was actually banned. I'd take your ban seriously. Even if it's in a really small community with even 10 or 12 people in some retro fighting game that, no one's ever heard of, I gladly will add it to the list. Just tell me what it is, provide me evidence that there is actually a ban in effect, and that's all. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to tell you who told me. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
I like that you included a change list on the bottom.
Yes, I think transparency, because the other thing I've been critical about with the Smash's community's version of like a code of conduct and stuff, and I totally get why they do it. It is a hell on earth to be a person who's publicly involved with harassment, taking care of that. Everyone on their list of people who it actually makes ban decisions is private. Some people speak up and have let known who they are, but for the most part, their identities are private. And I think that lack of transparency creates paranoia. And you don't actually want the feeling like, oh, I'm going to get banned for just saying every one little thing, or I might get banned. Because that's one of the bad faith talking points I want to get rid of, is that I don't think people just get banned out of nowhere. That just doesn't happen. It's a bad faith talking point. And truth is, there's only 23 people on this list. Granted, I'm waiting for more. But I'm gonna go out and say there's probably less than 50 that have actually been banned from a Discord or something like that. And they're not a random troll or whatever. Not. It's just people. And so I don't think people need to feel like they will get banned for any little thing, because that clearly doesn't happen. But I think if you're not transparent about your goals and the changes you're doing, then it gives credence to that idea of paranoia. So to get rid of that, I'm just honest. I post every day on Twitter. Here's the update. You can go look at it. I keep a change list at the bottom that's dated, has all the names that have been added. If I've changed the descriptions, if I've taken someone off, I'll note it. And that's all I can do. And so then I think that helps create a sense of honesty and establishing that good faith that you can reach out to me and I will do the right thing. I'll update it if I need to. If I make a mistake, I'll note it. And that's all I can do.
Yep.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, you said if you make a mistake, you'll note it. The thing I like about the change list is it makes it not a monolithic document.
Nope.
You can see that it's changed. And if somebody if they get unbanned, you write that, you not only change the, like you said for Noel Brown, you change the dates, right? But there's also the change list there, so you can see, when that happened, and you can see that these changes are happening, and it's not going to just be oh, somebody got put on this list, so they're fucked forever. They can never go to this event again.
Exactly. Yeah, you put okay, here's a change, they've been removed, or I'll put the dates of when actually a ban existed. So therefore, you don't get the wrong idea that someone was oh, they were banned to this day from this tournament. It's well, no, maybe they might have been banned for a year, but they were allowed to come back. And because again, I think it's important to establish that people can move on from the way they act. It's not like you're gone forever, because that's another bad faith talking point, is that you're gone forever. You have no chance. You can't be redeemed. Nothing. That was with the infiltration talking point I would hear all the time. Bug the hell out of me because it just wasn't true. Even though the event happened in 2017. In 2019, he was still going on rants on Twitter, giving interviews to IGN Korea, where he was just saying, again, the same lies he's told over and over and over again. And he didn't really change that much. If he did, props to him. But he didn't. And so, but having this list out there, we'll just say, okay, and infiltration's not on the list. That's a good example. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that These people you think might have been banned were not actually banned. He just went away. He just took a self-imposed exile. It's not an official ban by any means. So if that's a critique of the scene, that's a critique of you didn't do that, even though you think you did, and so stop taking credit for it, because I would see some people go like, well, he got banned from so-and-so tournament for a year. First of all, it wasn't even a year. Second of all, no, he didn't. He super didn't, as a matter of fact. I was at EVO 2019. Trust me. I remember. So that's the other thing, is that I want to make sure that, like, okay, maybe people note we're not actually banning people. Some people just go away. Because I think some people assume, oh, they've been banned, so it's not a problem. We don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like, no, not necessarily always.
Heavy shit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I should have mentioned I'm very verbose, so like, and I've been cooped up for a long
This is
time.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, but
Morg just has to do adult things sometimes. So
okay.
we try to keep it under an hour because it's usually just us.
Okay.
But like, I mean, we can talk forever about people being bad in the FGC.
Yeah, I know.
I'm down.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it's
we could do a multi-part.
you could a
series
multi-part
on that.
investigative series.
Also, I'm West Coast, so I think you're in Arizona. Like, we up late. It's fine.
Oh yeah, it's only 8:00. Like yeah. But I forgot. I've forgotten that. I think Morg's in what DC or Maryland.
Eastern. Yeah, she's in DC.
Yeah.
Right. And you're in the Dakotas, so it's probably.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
But we should probably start to wind it down.
Sure, yeah.
Just a little bit. As we kind of mentioned earlier, I say earlier, but I don't mean on the show. I mean really more along the lines of when we're doing planning. We kind of wanted to, since going to be a lot of questions sent your way for the majority of the podcast tonight, they want to kind of give you something to ask back over to us.
Sure.
So wanted to give someone the opportunity to say, hey, give us a little, a tier list of these things, or top 3, top 5, whatever. And the thing that you chose was you wanted to know the top 3 things that we did not enjoy at first or at all, but then later you did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have, I don't know about 2 or 3, but I'm going to give you my number 1.
Okay.
Because one thing immediately comes to mind when I think of this. It's shitty beer. When I first started drinking, I first of all, I hated beer. I'm like, oh, this is gross. Like, I'm just gonna have hard alcohol.
Highbrow liquors.
Not even highbrow, but like it was like I just hard alcohol.
I see.
That I can have
like,
in short things.
I'm a spirits man.
Yeah, I can mix things in. I can make this taste good.
Sure.
But most of the early parties, it's gonna be a lot of shitty beer. I moved away from that, but like in recent years, you know what? I've been a big fan of picking up a 6-pack of PBR or a 6-pack of Miller High Life. And like, you know what? Sometimes that's exactly what I want. I'll drink regular Bud.
Okay.
Not a big fan of Bud Light though. But yeah, it's this resurgence and going back around to having just some really garbage fucking beer.
There you go. Yeah.
It's not even a matter of like, hey, I still like I like my craft beers. Mm-hmm. I like my nice spirits and stuff like that. But every once in a while, especially during the summer, just that ice cold shitty beer, that is the number one thing on my mind.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, that's change. That's growth. That's what we like to hear.
I guess. Is it growth or is it regression?
A devolution.
I'm not entirely sure.
It's a regression in a good way. It's a good devolution.
Okay.
Yes. It's like when you have a Pokemon that has a less cool evolution, so you intentionally hit the button to make it not evolve.
Keep pressing B until you get that. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're going to evolve into like, a good, spirit of 76, but then it kind of devolves back into Patch Blue Ribbon. Like, it's fine. This is one of those good things. Yeah.
Vince, what do you got?
I can't really think of anything good. Beer would have been a good one.
Okay.
I used to really dislike beer. I just thought it was really gross. And then I started playing Third Strike with some guys in Saginaw, which is like where I really learned to play Third Strike.
Beer's all right.
Well, so I mean, kind of the like I would just go to parties or whatever, and they would have like Budweiser, Miller Lite or whatever, and I was like, I don't know. But I started playing with these guys in Saginaw, and Saginaw actually has this like really, really good craft beer bar. And so we would do like the thing where we would, we'd go over to Rick's house and we'd play Third Strike for like 16 hours or whatever. And then when we were done,
Oh yeah.
we would all go chill at the tap house, and we'd watch like the Sugiyama best of videos on Rick's phone or whatever, and just have drinks there. And since they were all drinking beer, I was like, I guess I'll fucking try it. And then I discovered craft beer and learned that I liked it. So now I enjoy a beer.
Are you the same way that I am in that you got in with like, oh, like these are like nice beers, these are like craft beers, and then you're like, I'm gonna steadily start drinking shittier beers like along the way.
Yeah. What we used to do, part of the reason I always drink at tournaments when I'm because I like enter the Third Strike tournament, I gotta have a drink before the tournament, is because we would just like. So I kind of tell people this is a joke, but also I'm not really joking when they pick up a new fighting game and they always want to. I'm going to go on a tangent here. People are allergic to learning, and I hate it.
Yeah.
People always ask these things, and the way they frame their ask, and I can't think of like an exact example right now, but they always want to know that one weird trick, right? Like, oh, what's the trick to this combo? Mm-hmm. And it's just like there is no trick. You just
probably just
practice.
got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to get the same thing about like specific character matches. Like, what do I have to do with like? How do I beat this character? It's like there's no like magic. Like just do this one thing, and they can't block it.
And one of the things you have to like, one of the things you get annoyed with is like there's like this sort of like this whole complex, like this whole marketing complex of like explaining these abstract concepts in the most abstract way to make it sound like it's smart and high thinking and highbrow, and it's just a raw animalistic instinct sometimes, and sometimes you just have to get involved in it and do it. Like I've always said, like when you're gonna make a fighting game tutorial, how do you explain spacing? You can't. I've seen, the Mortal Kombat one's really good. It tries. It's still not a very, it's just something you have to go out and experience, and there's just certain things that you can't reach. So I absolutely agree with you that people want the magic answer sometimes. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and no matter how well it's explained, even if somebody could tell you exactly what to do, you still have to, like, do it a lot to, get to learn it.
Right.
I mean, somebody did once tell me, to be fair, I was like, I fucking hate Urian. And they were like, well, you play Oro push low medium. It beats up tackles real good. And then I did it. And I was like, oh, that does beat up tackles real good. So, like, I mean, it can happen, right? There are things that somebody can tell you, but it doesn't always work. And, like, what if he pushes another button? Like, you really have to, like, be in there to learn it, right? And so I always tell people, kind of joking but not, when they ask me about like how do I get good at this game or how do I get good at fighting games, I'm like, just play it for 8 hours a day for like 5 years.
There you go.
Like,
you ask so precious little,
Yeah.
But honestly, like, so that's kind of like where I got as good as I am at Third Strike, is just because we would go over to Rick's house, and I lived like a 10-minute drive. And so it'd just be like, yo, bro, you want to play some Third Strike? I'm like, all right. And then we'd head over and we'd just play for like 8 hours. And so I played Third Strike for like 8 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week for like 3 years. Damn. And so we went from like, they took me out to the craft beer bar because they were like, no, beer is good. Check it out. And then back to Lamo's point about devolving back into the cheap beer. We would go back to Rick's house and then we'd just be like, well, we got this 48 pack of Budweiser now. So between like,
and we're not going to not have all of it, right?
Yeah. So what we would end up doing a lot of times is like we would have between like 6 and 8 people depending on the night, and we would just play. We would like start playing, and we'd open up the 48 pack, and we would just play till the 48 pack was done. And so now when I go to tournaments, sometimes I'm like, is state-based learning real? I feel like it might be. I should have a drink.
Yeah, there you go. Where's the 48 pack?
So that's my beer story.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. I asked the question, and I guess it's only fair I give an answer back. I'm not going to do 3 since you guys only did 1. I'll do 1. As I mentioned earlier, I am a teetotaler, so I don't actually do it.
I do have a second one.
Oh, you do? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's good. You can go first.
Okay.
I talked forever.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I am a teetotaler, so I actually don't drink very much. So my answer is a little bit more nerdy. But one of the ones that I just played it again recently, and I still think it's brilliant. It's why I think it's one of the best games of its generation, and that is Alan Wake, which is Remedy's 2010 Xbox 360. I think it was only for Xbox game. It was and when I first played it, in 2010, because it was on the cusp of like 2010 was like when I think like Red Dead Redemption had come out, so a lot of big games had come out around that time, and I think I was really into Street Fighter 4 because Street Fighter 4 had come out in 2009. So I was really looking forward to it because Remedy made Max Payne 1 and 2, which I think are amazing. I think those are great shooters. I love the style of it and everything like that. And Alan Wake was going to be from them, and I was really looking into it. And it was a departure a lot from what Max Payne was. Whereas Max Payne was a story told through a graphic novel style with a heavy noir theme. Alan Wake was way more into like surreal Twin Peaks-ish kind of weirdness. And the gameplay was a lot more like less ragdoll physics and stuff like that and more of like this direct combat, which I kind of rebelled against. I was like, this just isn't as fun, and the noir's not there, and I wasn't into it. I was really disappointed because I'd waited maybe 6 years since Max Payne 2 had come out, and I just felt like it wasn't really good. So in the next couple of years, when Quantum Break, which was their next game for Xbox One, came out, it came with a free copy of Alan Wake, and I also didn't think much of Quantum Break, so I was like, oh man, Remedy's really on the outs here. So I want to play Alan Wake again, and I played it again, and man, it is something else. So if you haven't played it, the real basic sense is Alan Wake is a Stephen King-like writer who got a really bad case of writer's block, and so he's going to spend a weekend at this island, kind of in like a nice resort, like a kind of northeastern town. But the night he's there, his wife did it for him as like a present because she felt bad that he has writer's block, and he gets mad at her because she sets up a typewriter and is like, I really hope that this will help you write, and I set up a doctor's appointment for you with like this pop psychologist. She's only just trying to help, and he snaps at her, and he leaves the house, and he feels bad about it, but she's terribly afraid of the dark, and so he feels bad that he left her in the night. So he goes to go back, and she is suddenly fallen off a rail of the house, and she falls into the lake, and he dives in, and he can't find her. And what he's come to realize is he's now in this nightmare world at night. And he keeps finding these manuscript pages of a story that he appears to have written, but is also happening to him right now. So you'll pick up a manuscript page, and it may not happen like in the next 10 minutes, but in the next 20 minutes, you're going to see the exact page you picked up. Yep. It's going to happen. And at night, he's attacked by these creatures, and it's really claustrophobic. Like you're surrounded by every level's in like a foresty area, and the monsters will come at you from all sides. And the only way you can fight them is you got to hold a flashlight at them until this little meter drops around him, and then they're vulnerable to a gunshot. And he auto-aims, so it's not like the gunshot is the hard part. But you got to keep the flashlight focused, and you've got to keep it like all around you. It's a really intense setup, and it kind of adds with the feel of like you're trapped in the forest at night. You can't see. You're always trying to pay attention. The gameplay works perfectly with the scenario they've set up. And I think it's a really affecting scenario of like a person who's just like trying to, their wife did something nice for them. And instead of trying to rescue her because she's like a girl and needs to be rescued, it's like, oh man, like she tried to do something nice for you and you kind of let her off the hook. Now I really, like, I got to find her. I got to help her. And so you're trying to, and it is a lot of like fun references. Like it's very self-aware, and it's just a really fun, great game. It's not terribly long. There's a lot of great music in it. And it's just a really, really good game. And Remedy, I think, is one of the best developers. I think Control, which is their latest one, I think it's one of the I listed as one of my best games of this generation. Control. Yeah, I just thought it was amazing, and I think they're just really good at nailing gameplay that goes exactly with the kind of story they want to tell. Because gameplay and story to me is they're tied together. You don't have a story in a game, and I think there are so many games, and I hate to jump on the Last of Us 2 train a little bit, but I think that one of the big problems with Naughty Dog is that I think one of their issues is that they don't do a very good job at tying the story and the feeling of story into gameplay. They just want to do the one scenario that they have that they think is cool and replay that, and then you follow the story along with it. And I think that turns some people just want to be engaged that way, but I think for me personally, I want to be engaged with the story through the gameplay. And I think a lot of times you got to tie them together, and that's what Alan Wake does. That's what Remedy does extremely well. And while I don't like Quantum Break a whole lot, I think they do a pretty good job of that in it. And Control is amazing. Max Payne 1 and 2 are amazing. Check out Remedy games if you ever get a chance. That's my pitch.
It sucks, like Alan Wake got delisted more or less.
Yes, and well, it's a licensing nightmare is one of the big issues. There's so many actual songs in it, yeah.
I was going to ask, can I still buy that, or do I just have to pirate it now?
You got to pirate it, pretty much.
You got to pirate. I think you got to pirate it, or you got to buy Quantum Break and hope that it still has a copy in it.
I'll definitely do that. I love gacha.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think you have to pirate it, but it's a great. Actually, you know what? It's actually, and I'll pitch it again. It's on the Game Pass, the Xbox Game Pass. Alan Wake, you can get it. So if you want to, if you can get it for like $1.99, which they usually do, like the first month might be $1.99. You can get Alan Wake as included as part of the Game Pass. There you go, Microsoft. Pay me.
It's funny because I like when they're making a big stink, but hey, Alan Wake's being delisted. You can get it for like however many dollars or whatever. Like I got it for cheap, and I replayed it for the first time past like when it originally came out. And I couldn't actually get through. I don't remember if I actually got through the intro or not. Because I was just like, God, Alan Wake fucking sucks towards his wife.
Yeah.
He's so shitty towards his wife.
At first.
This
Totally.
sucks.
Yeah. And then like, she's
he,
gone and
he
you gotta
actually
find her.
he actually pulls the breaker for the house to turn
He
off
does.
all the lights while his wife is inside, and he knows that she has a crippling fear of the dark, and he does that. I'm like, damn, this dude's fucking trash.
Yeah, and then it's about unlearning how to be, trying to unlearn yourself from being trash, which is like what he's doing with his manuscript. And the way it also,
Such
and
a
not,
garbage man.
Not to spoil it too much, but the way Control is actually Alan Wake, the expanded Alan Wake universe is really cool. What they've did in their recent DLC. So if you played
Alan Wake Cinematic Universe,
it's the Alan Wake Cinematic Universe. So if you played Alan Wake and you want to play Control, there are ties together. So that's really cool too.
Yeah,
that's why I asked. I was playing. Lamo and I were talking about Control because I bought it and played through it recently. And I don't know. I often fall off on games after about the 30-hour mark, and I just am like done with them. So I haven't been playing it, but I got through the main campaign and I started playing the DLC, and they explicitly mention Alan Wake, and I just love Control. So it's like, fuck, I have to go find Alan Wake now. I don't think I can buy it anymore.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think that is going to do it for tonight. Tanner, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Especially for being our very first guest ever. Where can the people find you on social media?
So my Twitter account is @KingHippo42, all one word. I post everything. If like I said, I have the daily updates on the catalog. I frequently go into like a fugue state where I post about anything that makes me laugh. People have said that I am really good at reaction videos and reaction GIFs, so I'll take that. So if you want to see like a kind of off-kilter like video clip to use as a reference to something or a particular dunk on somebody, apparently I'm very good at that. So that's what I've been told. I mainly repost, retweet a lot of like artwork and stuff like that, and whatever I'm interested in at the moment. And I will, review games on through a tweet thread. So that, and you can follow me there. And that's really the only social media I kind of use. So if you're interested, hit up @KingHippo42.
I will actually. I do have to agree with the assessment that you are good at having clips of videos to save for reacting to. There's one that I saved that you posted ages ago, and it's from the Ghostbusters cartoon.
Oh, I know
and
exactly what
it's
you're
one of
talking
them yelling, "This isn't it!" and like crash into the wall or some shit.
Yeah, so
Like,
this
is
from
perfect.
the real Ghostbusters. There's an episode where Venkman says, "This isn't fun. I've had fun. This isn't it." Yeah! And he crashes into a wall. And I always remember him saying, "This isn't it," and how everybody says that nowadays. So I'm just like, just take that clip. And then
so
anytime someone does something, you're like, "This isn't it."
So fucking good. Vince, where can the people find you?
I am unfortunately available on Twitter at Snooze2718.
Unfortunately, we all are. That's true.
Unfortunately. And you can find me, Lamo, on Twitter at twitter.com. I don't know why I went through none of y'all did the URL there.
Twitter.com/www.
You can find me at http://
Yeah. No, that's
www.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
.gov.
I fucked up. I got to start it over now. But you can find me on Twitter at Lamo_SD. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lamo. I'm actually going to be streaming this weekend, or I guess last weekend by the time this episode gets out. Whatever. But thank you to both of you for being on tonight. Thank you to our listeners as well. Hit up yase.world, find links to get yourself some fancy new fits, find links to the Discord if you're somehow not already on there, and then of course link to the podcast, but you already know that because you're already listening to the podcast.
Yes.
We will be back next week. Until then, keep your head up. Shit's been dark lately, but you know what? Keep your head up. It's gonna get better. Should have stopped there. Fucked up. Take it easy, y'all.
Take it easy, everybody. Thanks.
Peace.